All right, let's dive into one of the most tense and, frankly, absolutely terrifying periods in modern history, the Cold War. Now, this wasn't a war in the way you might think, with big armies clashing on a battlefield. No, this was more like a global chess match that lasted for nearly half a century. It was a time of incredible tension, fear, and so many near disasters that completely shaped the world we're all living in today.
What you're looking at here is basically a roadmap of that tension. Think of it like a chain reaction, just a series of dominoes falling one after another, and each one pushes the entire world a little bit closer to the edge. So we're going to follow this path, starting with this huge ideological split, and take it all the way up to the moment the world almost ran out of time.
So, how did this all even start? Well, you have to go back to the end of World War II. The old world order was just shattered, and out of all that rubble, a new kind of global conflict was taking shape. The board was being set, and on that new board, two main players emerged. Two giants, really. The United States and the Soviet Union. I mean, these guys were allies during the war, but once peace arrived, it became crystal clear that they had completely opposite visions for how the world should work. At its absolute core, this whole thing was a clash of two totally opposing worldviews. On one side, you have the US championing capitalism, things like individual freedom, free markets, democratic elections. And on the other side, you've got the Soviet Union pushing for communism, which meant total state control, a command economy, and a single party running the show. And look, these weren't just some abstract political theories. They were fundamentally different blueprints for how to build a society. And neither side was about to back down. So, the US makes its first big strategic move with something called the Truman Doctrine. The key word here was containment. The idea wasn't to go in and defeat communism where it already was, but to draw a line in the sand and stop it from spreading anywhere else. The message was basically, not on our watch. Not today. And if you want to see where this division got really, really real, look no further than Berlin. Here you had a city deep inside communist-controlled East Germany that was itself split right in two. And with the Berlin Wall going up and the famous Berlin airlift, the tension became something you could literally see and touch. This ideological divide was now a physical barrier of concrete and barbed wire. All right, so what started as a cold conflict of ideas, well, it was about to get hot. I mean, really hot. It started spilling over into actual warfare. And at the same time, it created this deep paranoia that just swept across entire nations. The first time things really turned hot was in Korea. This became the first major proxy war, where the two superpowers basically fought each other through other countries. It pitted the communist North against the US-backed South. Suddenly, that whole policy of containment was being enforced with soldiers and weapons. The message couldn't have been clearer. This isn't just talk anymore. Now, while all this fighting was raging overseas, a whole different kind of war was being waged back home, especially in the United States. The second Red Scare kicked in, and it created this climate of intense fear and suspicion. I mean, you had neighbors accusing neighbors, artists and writers getting blacklisted, just a general panic that communist spies were everywhere. But believe it or not, the stakes were about to be raised to a level that humanity had never seen before. The competition was moving from the battlefields to the laboratories, and it was about to ignite an arms race with truly world-ending potential. And that brings us to this term, nuclear proliferation. It's really just a fancy way of saying more bombs and bigger bombs. It started with the US, but it wasn't long before the Soviets had the bomb too. And then both sides just kept building more and more of them, each one more destructive than the last. This wasn't just another weapon, this changed the entire game. This led to one of the most chilling and, frankly, insane concepts in all of human history, mutually assured destruction. People just started calling it MAD, which is pretty fitting. The logic was simple and absolutely terrifying. Both sides had so many nuclear weapons that even if they got hit by a surprise attack first, they'd still have enough left to completely obliterate their attacker in return. So if one side pushed the button, both sides would be wiped out. The only thing keeping the peace was the promise of total mutual annihilation.
At the very same time, this competition just blasted off into outer space. When the Soviets launched Sputnik, the very first satellite, it sent absolute shockwaves across the US. See, this wasn't just about exploring the cosmos. It was a huge flex, a demonstration of technological superiority. The US responded by creating NASA, and then President Kennedy set this incredibly audacious goal: landing a man on the moon. It was the ultimate power move, just with rockets. So, you've got this ideological battle, you've got proxy wars, you've got this terrifying arms race, and all of this tension was building to one single moment. A kind of final countdown where everything came to a head, and the world came closer than it ever has to all-out nuclear war. And the fuse was lit in Cuba, which, you have to remember, is just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. A US-backed invasion at the Bay of Pigs, meant to overthrow Fidel Castro, failed spectacularly. And all that did was push Castro right into the arms of the Soviet Union. The stage was now set for the ultimate confrontation.
13. That's it. Just 13. For 13 days in October of 1962, the entire world just held its breath. This number, 13, it represents the single most dangerous moment of the entire Cold War.
This was it, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet Union had secretly placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, missiles capable of striking major American cities in minutes. For those 13 days, the two superpowers were locked in a direct eyeball-to-eyeball standoff. This was mutually assured destruction playing out in real time. This was the moment the world almost pressed the big red button.
You know, when you look back on it, the Cold War wasn't a single event at all. It was this constant, grinding 50-year state of tension, a long series of proxy battles and fears and technological competitions that pushed humanity right to the absolute brink. Which, of course, raises the biggest question of all. How on earth did we make it through?
The answer isn't simple. It involved a ton of intense diplomacy, some secret back-channel conversations, and probably a healthy dose of pure dumb luck. But maybe the most honest way to sum it all up is with this statement of both relief and just bewilderment. And somehow, against all the odds, we made it through without blowing up the planet. And it just leaves you wondering, how fragile was that survival, really?